All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, standing up with a field and blue sky behind him. We're going to talk today about Cardinals-Browns. Then we're going to get into the good games, Cowboys-Eagles, and Sunday Night Football, Bills-Bengals, and we'll close out with our best bets. Let's start with Cardinals-Browns, Drew. Deshaun Watson is limited at practice. Seems like he has a chance to play, but no certainty. Looks like it's probably going to be Clayton Tune at quarterback for the Cardinals. Browns are 8.5-point favorites, total 37.5, as has become custom in Cleveland Browns games. Do you have any plays on this one?
I didn't play it, but I'm interested to see where this market goes because this is somehow, some way still quarterback uncertainty. I mean, the fact that the Cardinals continue to be extremely positive and effusive with praise about how good Kyler Murray has looked, but that they still want to go with Clayton Tune in this game is really confusing to me. There are people that will make excuses like, "Well, yeah, you don't want to put Kyler Murray up against the Browns defense's first game back." I mean, all right, I guess. I don't exactly know why you would treat him with kid gloves at this point anyway. If he's your franchise cornerstone, you expect him to show up and perform when he's ready. And apparently, if he's not getting practice with the ones, then he's not ready. And so Clayton Tune it is. And I got to tell you, my expectations for Tune time are very low, Jay. Very, very low. When you get benched for a guy who has been on the team for 1 week, in the end of preseason cycle where you've gotten lots of reps with guys who are going to make the team, that is a bad sign. And I think the Cardinals took the opportunity to move off of Dobbs, knowing that he was only going to get this one more start. And they figured, hey, we're probably losing to the Browns, whether we start Tune or Dobbs. So we might as well just kick the tires on Tune to see if he's learned anything in the 7 weeks since we decided to bench him. I think ultimately this is probably not big enough number. If we get confirmation that Deshaun Watson is playing and it is Clayton Tune time, then, with 100% certainty, then this is probably crossing 10. I think if you want to use Browns and all your teasers, if you want to use Browns, money line parlay type of leg, I don't think that's crazy because honestly, like there are certain quarterbacks who benefit from being unknown quantities. I would argue that Jaren Hall maybe this week is one of those guys who you don't really know what you're going to get there. And he's in a good offensive system and he's got some protection. Well, Tune is in the opposite situation. I don't realistically think they're going to be able to protect him well against a very violent pass rush. I don't think they're going to be able to create separation against a decent pass defense. And I think in general, the Cardinals are lacking, the complementary piece that they desperately wanted in terms of a rushing attack to make this any kind of a balanced game. So Tune's probably a sitting duck, and Cardinals, if they score more than 3 points, I think we have to give them a healthy round of applause against a real defense that is the Cleveland Browns on the road. The fact that this may even have a little bit of weather involved makes it that much more likely that this stays under. If this is a Watson versus Tune, I would expect this closes 10.5. I think the total is probably correct, but could go down a hair if the weather gets worse. So that's kind of my read there. And I think tease away on the Browns. What's your read?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you just think about it from the perspective of is the line more likely to close 10 or 7, to me it's much more likely to close 10, given that it seems like there is more scope for Deshaun Watson to play than Kyler Murray to play. And regardless, if it is PJ Walker v. Clayton Tune, then I would like the Browns. My only concern is that PJ Walker is terrible.
Yes.
He's absolutely terrible. There is nothing there.
Yes.
He is the worst quarterback in the league, I think by margin, by PFF grade. All he needed to do was throw a pass incomplete at the end of the game against Seattle, and they very likely win that. Or at worst go to overtime, I would think, and instead throws it off of Jamal Adams' helmet. So that would be the only refrain. But at the same time, I don't think PJ Walkerness is going to be given a chance to manifest as much in this game. I think it'll be just a lot of running the ball and then winning the game with their defense. This might be the last chance people have to get Myles Garrett at plus 200 defensive player of the year. What TJ Watt does. We're recording before Steelers-Titans, but with Parsons going up against the Eagles offensive line and Garrett going up against Clayton Tune, I like Garrett in that matchup.
I'll be honest, I really, really, really hope that the Browns start Watson because I have got to know what is going on with his form right now before we get to the Bengals game next week. Like this is we need data. We need it. Like I don't want to be speculating, guessing, trying to pinpoint. I guess they're playing the Ravens next. Wait. Who Browns Bengals is coming up, and that's going to be hugely consequential for both those teams trying to make the playoffs. I need data on Watson before we get there. If you were to build out a probability distribution here, what are the chances that Watson comes back and he looks like the best version we saw of him this year versus the chances that he is just never right and continues to call his own number for the bench the rest of the season with this injury?
I would say that the most likely outcome, if he plays, I would say it's a big favorite that he looks better than he did against the Colts, just because why would he rush back for a second time, particularly when you're playing Clayton Tune? So I would suspect that he probably looks like a version in between the Colts player and the guy who eviscerated the Titans in the best game that he's played in a Browns uniform, which, by the way, was the last game that he's played healthy. So the last time we saw Deshaun Watson healthy, he looked amazing. So that is something of note if you're positive on the Browns. But so I would expect that is the most likely outcome. I would say the next most likely outcome is that he is just fine. And I would say the least likely outcome is that he looks like the same guy he did against the Colts, just because I see no reason at all to rush him back. Like, why would they do that in a game? If there was ever a game where you can give a guy an extra week, it's this one.
Okay. Very fair.
All right, before we move on to Cowboys-Eagles, there is one final showdown out west to determine this year's NASCAR champion. Drew, find out if Will Byron, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, or Kyle Larson take the crown. Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, there's a few big ones this week, probably 4 to be fair. This is one of them. Cowboys at Eagles. Eagles 3-point favorites, which is a little surprising to me. And the total is ticked up now to 47. What is your read on this game?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm taking crazy pills that this hasn't moved off of 3. I'm surprised that all of the market makers and everybody with an opinion here is comfortable saying that the Eagles are clearly the better team, especially in light of the fact that we've seen Jalen Hurts finish now several games limping and with kind of noticeable reduced mobility and athleticism. If he is not a dynamic force on the ground to complement the passing game here for the Eagles, then it is very clear, in my opinion, that the most obvious advantage is Cowboys defense versus Eagles offense. I think it's an advantage anyway because I fancy Dan Quinn having exactly the right tools in his toolbox to really frustrate the Eagles in this game. The Eagles are they do this bimodal thing where they want to just operate in the very short or the very deep, and that they don't really have anything in their playbook. They don't really have any guys that can really make you hurt in the middle and in the intermediate space, which is really where the Cowboys are the weakest. And so I don't think Eagles fit hand in glove in terms of what they do best with what the Cowboys, do tend to give up on defense. And so I think the fact that the Eagles are at a disadvantage here offensively is hugely impactful to the ultimate outcome of this game. I would put Eagles team total under as one of my more confident team total looks of the week. And I think the Cowboys can either generate a lead, play from ahead, and do sort of the bully ball type of stuff we've seen them do when they've been clearly the better team on a given day a lot this season. And I think if the Eagles, if this is a score and answer type of game or a field position type of game, I'm fine having the Cowboys +3 Cowboys money line here, hoping that you still get an opportunity with the ball last and better special teams this year than you had last year. So I don't make much of Dak's inability to really rise to the occasion against the elite teams in the NFL. I think that overall the Cowboys offense and particularly CeeDee Lamb have pretty outstanding matchups in this one. And so I might be talking myself into what I already wanted to bet, but just to boil it down to the very, very, very basics, 1.5 points of home field advantage here in division for the Eagles. And I would say that there is very, very, very tough sell to convince me that the Eagles are 1.5 points better than the Cowboys on a neutral.
Yep, no, I agree. And the thing with Dak and the idea that Dak doesn't perform in big games, he just doesn't perform against the San Francisco 49ers. That's it. Outside of that, it's fine. And people forget that, before he didn't play very well in the playoff game against San Francisco, the week before that, he ended Tom Brady's career playing incredibly against the Bucs. Dak has been fantastic. He's passed 2 times out against the Chargers. and the Rams. The best I've ever seen Dak Prescott play and the best I've ever seen this Cowboys offense was against the Eagles towards the end of the season last year when Jalen Hurts was out. And Dak Prescott, I want to say at one point he completed like 20 passes in a row and was just completely unstoppable. Now, to be fair, that streak was disrupted by, I think, a pick six to Josh Sweat, if I recall. So that's kind of the Dak experience. But the Eagles had no answer for CeeDee Lamb that day. The Cowboys moved him all around the formation. He's running deep out of the slot. They just couldn't contain him. And I think the strangest thing about the Cowboys is they can't run the ball at all, which I don't understand because they have a really good offensive line and Pollard is maybe Pollard's just not right. But in any case, I think that is not as big of a disadvantage against the Eagles because I think that they just need to be throwing anyway. And that's how you beat the Eagles, a suspect secondary currently. So I agree. I like the Cowboys. My concern would be that I think the Cowboys offense without Trayvon Diggs is hugely dependent on Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence getting home. And if they don't get home, then the back end of the defense gets exposed a little bit. So I'm a bit concerned about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith making big plays. But at the same time, I agree with your point about the Eagles not really being an intermediate type of team outside of Dallas Goedert. So, and the big thing is that Jalen Hurts is limping to the line every time.
Yeah, right.
That's the biggest thing of all. So I agree. I'm going to try and will this into existence. Have a lot of Cowboys equity at prices that are basically now poison. And I need
no way.
Double flip into the very good with a win here in Philadelphia.
Cowboys are getting the 1 CJ. We don't have to worry about it.
Okay, no.
If people aren't there yet, they're late to the party. That's okay. We're early. It's early, Jay.
From your mouth to God's ears, Drew Dinsick. Let's get these beautiful Cowboys home, and hopefully they win and cover. All right, before we get to Bills-Bengals, two of the NFL's best quarterbacks face off this week on Sunday night. It is Bills-Bengals. Don't miss Josh Allen and the Bills facing off against Joe Burrow and the Bengals in Cincinnati. Coverage of the AFC clash begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. All right, this Bengals -3 thing disappeared, which I didn't understand at all. It's now Bengals -1.5, which I think is a much more closer to rational line that makes sense to me. The total is 49.5. Do you think the right team is favored here, Drew?
I think it's pretty darn close, but give me the homies here. I know that it's a little bit potentially you're buying high on an offense that just was amazing against the Niners, and Burrow might not have another performance like that, right away. It may take him, a couple weeks to really get back to the guy we expect to see week in, week out. But my specific opinion is I'm throwing all of the data we've got to this point in the season out for the Bengals, and I'm just using their preseason prior on offense because I think that realistically the Burrow injury is behind him, and you're now getting kind of a more complete look at who they want to be and how they can best attack you. And I really like the way that fits against this Bills defense that's depleted here. So it's going to be a little bit game state dependent. I completely acknowledge that, but I think the Bengals have a realistic chance to put, pretty compelling drives together early in this game, put a little bit of scoreboard pressure on the Bills. And then in the second half, once Big Lou's gotten a chance to see what the Bills are bringing to the table offensively, I would expect some Bengals second half adjustments on defense. And I think the Bengals can bully ball the Bills a little bit in the running game and shorten this game in the second half here. So I would expect a little bit like a first half over, second half under type of game state. And I think that plays itself into the hands of the home team Bengals, who, should have a pretty complete offensive performance to get considering the weaknesses on the Bills defense as currently constituted. My favorite matchup is probably who's defending Jamar Chase in this game exactly.
My boy Rasul Douglas.
You're gonna give Rasul Douglas that assignment 5 minutes after he gets to Buffalo.
Well,
that's a tough call, man. That's a tough call. Well, I just this has lots of earmarks of Bengals get to 31 points and they can tighten down on the Bills in the second half. Jamar Chase scores 3 touchdowns. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Burrow's fine. But I'm excited for this game because it does have a lot of implications, a lot of, this is not a loser goes home match for either of these teams by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think the loser is going to have an extremely low likelihood of winning their division and having home games. And if you want to say loser goes home in the sense that loser's not going to be able to win 3 road games in the playoffs in the AFC, I'm fine with that. So this is like, a one spot removed effectively from an elimination game, in my opinion. And that means, those stakes being that high are so exciting. So very, very happy that we get this game on NBC on Sunday night. And, I'll watch every minute of it in the hopes that the Bengals can come through. But at the same time, I get the case for the Bills. Is there anything you think I'm missing?
I'd say 2 things. One, the idea that Burrow is back and fully healthy and this Bengals offense is just a wagon again. I agree with that, but I think that was true 3 weeks ago because I think Burrow got right in the Arizona game where he was, statistically fantastic and Chase has like 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he was running in that game too. So I think he was physically right back then. If you look at his numbers in terms of his ability to evade pressure, it all started to tick up from that Arizona game. So I think he's been right for a while now, which leads me to my concern is that I think Burrow was right for the Seattle game, and they weren't very good in the Seattle game. They really should have lost at home to the Seahawks in a game they absolutely had to win. So I think the idea that Burrow is Superman and he's back, I think he's healthy, but I think he's already been healthy. And I think that they showed that because, the Bengals offense is outstanding, but they've never been a completely dominant regular season game. They do have these weird troughs. They usually to start the season, to be fair. So I would say that I think the Bills offense is just as good as the Bengals offense, if not slightly better potentially, because I think they have a better line. And neither team has ever really been great at running the ball. And in terms of the weapons, slight advantage Cincinnati. In terms of the quarterbacks, they're pretty much a wash. Allen and Burrow, I'd probably take Allen. We'll see what his health is like. But my second question to you, and this is my other concern about the Bengals, is who's the second best defensive player on the Bengals outside of Trey Hendrickson?
Logan Wilson. Clearly.
Logan Wilson? Okay.
Yeah.
Sam Hubbard?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I don't think this is a great defense. And I think it's a little bit of a concern that, so Purdy throws the 2 interceptions against the Bengals. One is a bizarre play where he rolls out and it seems like he's got a guy over for a touchdown. He just throws it straight to the Bengals player. And it really should have been a pick 6. Now, outside of those 2 plays, those 2 moments of madness, Purdy was fantastic. And Purdy moved the ball against the Bengals very effectively. The Seahawks, I thought, moved the ball enough to win the game against the Bengals. I don't think this is a great defense. Now, I don't think Buffalo have a great defense either, but I do think having Russell Douglas will help just because previously it was like, all right, it's Benford and Jackson. Now, if it's Douglas, Benford, and Jackson, now at least you have options. It's still Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer looks better in the secondary. Linebacking core in the D-line isn't what it was, but I don't think they're like glaring weaknesses. Okay. Buffalo also have a rest advantage too, so all of that makes me lean Bills. And I just think that we've gone from the Bills being 6-point favorites in a playoff game to now being 2-point dogs to the Bengals. I just think it's too, and obviously a lot has changed, but I think that is too big of an adjustment.
Yeah, I think thinking back to that market cycle, the Bills got surcharged week of because people were expecting snow and thought that favored the Bills. But in reality, the Bengals came in with just a physical, we're going to push you off the line, we're going to win in the trenches game plan, and it worked perfectly for them. And I think ultimately, fair price in terms of the gap between those teams at that time was probably closer to 3.5, and got, maybe you want to surcharge it to 4.5 with home field for the Bills. That's fine. And since then, I do think you have to meaningfully downgrade the Bills defense because of the losses and the injuries. And actually, even before the injuries to the Bills, if you kind of peel away the 6 turnovers they got against Sam Howell, the defense hasn't been especially good this year. And I think there is just in general a little bit of a rocky transition here to Sean McDermott calling the defense, and just in general age and regression for some of the safety players who we thought were going to potentially elevate that unit and are just kind of at the edge of their aging curve is kind of coming down on them. And all of that to me spells trouble for a Bills defense that I think can be had to the tune of 31 points. So I get your points, and I guess I'll ask you, the Josh Allen injury Is it nothing burger?
It's a semi-nothing burger. I'm pretty sure that he's going to play. It seems like the market expects that he's going to play. I think the good thing there is that he did the injury against the Bucks, went into the medical tent, and then came out and looked exactly like Josh Allen. And now he's had 10 days as well.
Okay.
So I think that he will be fine. It's a little
Okay.
bit of a concern. I think it's more of a, if he re-aggravates it in the game, it's a concern, as opposed to I think he's going to come out and look like Deshaun Watson against the Colts. I will say with the Bills defense, like as kind of underwhelming as it's been and all the injuries they've had, and they've had these injuries for a while now, they're still 6th in EPA per play on defense, and the Bengals are 17th. So I think the Bills, they got really unlucky on third downs against the Jags with those conversions. I don't know. The underlying stuff on Buffalo I think is pretty positive, but something does definitely feel off about the Bills. Like, why are you the Hail Mary that really should have been caught away from blowing a game against the Bucks where the money line got turned off? Why are you a Tyrod Taylor pass away from losing to the Giants? I get it, but they've just played in these weird games where, like,
how do you let Mac Jones beat you from behind?
That's the real red flag. That wasn't particularly good, but I don't know. I still believe.
Okay.
Allen and the Bills.
Final question for you then. It's a tie game, or Bills are down by a field goal. Late in the game, Josh Allen drops back. He's got eons of time to throw. There's no pressure. He chucks it downfield. Are you 50-50 in that moment that he's throwing a pick, or are you feeling pretty confident that this is a big play for the Bills?
Well, that's the beauty of Josh Allen is you never entirely know. The thing is you never entirely know about any of these quarterbacks outside of Mahomes. But I do think that I have faith in Allen. I think Allen is the second best quarterback in the league behind Mahomes. I'd have him slightly in front of Burrow and Lamar. So I hope that his shoulder is okay and he can deliver. And I do think the Bills, they've found something. I think they lucked into it because Dawson Knox has had to go to IR. But playing more 11 personnel, getting more Shakir, playing more Kincaid in space.
Yeah,
I think this offense is just devastating. Having also using Gabe Davis in a way where it's not just boom or bust down the field. He's actually getting more shorter intermediate stuff. Now having Davis, Diggs, Kincaid, James Cook has looked really good. And having Shakir who gives them another element. I do think this projects as a top 2-3 offense the rest of the way. And I have a bit more faith in them than Cincinnati.
In concept, I totally agree with that. I think they needed to come back to this type of style to be their best. And I think it will ultimately bear more fruit for them. But I also am still racking my head as to how they didn't score 35 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like those drives in the second half, it was just like pulling teeth. Like, where was the aggressiveness? Like, land the haymaker, knock these guys out, and they just let them hang around it. It was weird. I will also concede a point. The second best player on the Bengals defense it's a good point. Like Logan Wilson's not that good, and he is the second best in my opinion. That's a problem. But you got Big Lou, and I think there are some things he can do scheming wise that could bring out the worst in Josh Allen. He's done it to better quarterbacks, so we'll see.
I will say that with that Bengals-Bills playoff line, which I think closed 6-5.5, I do think that was just a weird bad line where if they played again the next week, it would have adjusted to, like, to your point, to like 3.5 or 4. And I think a lot of that was the Bengals offensive line was just so decimated at that point, and everyone thought that it just made them completely unviable. But the thing is, and it's weird because no one really raised this at the time, but in retrospect, it seemed glaringly obvious that the snow completely negated Cincinnati's offensive line issues because the Buffalo pass rushers couldn't get a grip on their feet as they were pushing off to try and beat their opposition. So that was a weird thing. And then and to be fair, all the Bengals offensive line issues reared their head the next week against the Chiefs when Burrow got like sacked 5 times in the first half. So I don't know. That was a weird sequence of games and lines and with the injury stuff, and then with Mahomes' ankle, and
Hamlin stuff, all of it. Yeah.
It was weird. And anyway, we will. This is a referendum on Buffalo's season because if they lose this game, like they're done pretty much in terms of getting a 1 seed in the AFC. They may be just done for the division if they lose and the Dolphins beat the Chiefs. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to win 3 road games. And I agree. I don't think they're particularly well coached. Never see Buffalo as a very well coached team. I do think Cincinnati have an edge there. But anyway, big game on Sunday Night Football. Looking forward to it. All right. We close out with our best bets. A reminder, Saturday, November 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Vaughn Dalzell, Brad Thomas, and Eric Froton are answering your college football betting questions for Week 10, including the Pac-12 showdown. We discussed that is between Heisman favorite Michael Penix and Washington against last year's Heisman winner Caleb Williams of USC. All right, best bets for Week 9. We can be quick here because we've discussed the games, but I am taking the Bills money line, particularly if it is tethered to the price of 2.5. We discussed why. So I believe in you, Josh Allen. Josh Allen makes a surge back up into MVP consideration, and he takes down those nasty Bengals. What's your best bet?
I think this should be a coin flip. I'll take the plus money line on the Dallas Cowboys. We're like moths to a flame, Jay. We can't stay away from the high leverage games here, but that's okay.
I was playing up taking Saints -8, and I was like,
the most simply I can boil this down. The market is rating the Dallas defense as 12th. They're top 5. The market is rating the Eagles defense as top 10. They're middle of the pack. And I think both offenses kind of are clearly outside of the top 6 right now, and probably can't crack the top 6 this year unless Hurts gets miraculously very healthy. So, this is just a matter of counting on the best unit on the field, which I believe to be the Dallas defense being the deciding factor. And again, plus money in a coin flip, I'll take Dallas.
Okay, I agree with you, and I hope to God you're right, Drew Dinsick. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and subscribe. And a reminder that you can find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, good luck, everyone, this weekend.